by Sunday, I expect your 2 responses to your classmates. But then after that, starting with week 2, pretty much every week will be the same. Come in, make sure you read the announcements. I will also email all the announcements to you, so that shouldn't be any surprise. Every Monday I will post a web camp just like this one, where I go over your discussions pieces, and this will be my one attempt to talk with you. Of course, it's a one-sided lecture, and it's not a chance for you to respond, but then your discussions will be your chance to respond and continue the conversation. You'll go through the learning module, you'll do the readings, maybe watch the film or the internet interactive exercises for that week. Always make sure to read my comments on your discussion and your classmates' comments on your discussion pieces from the week before you start the next week's discussion. And that pretty much does it, I think, for the order of the class, the routine of the class. Talking about grades really quickly, there's 4 things you'll be graded on. There's the 8 discussions. In total, they will be worth 25% of the final grade, 1/4. The midterm paper will be the same, also worth 1/4, 25% of your final grade. Let me talk about the discussions. As I said, the initial post is due Thursday at midnight. They will be scored out of 15 because they're out of the 25% for discussions. 15% will be your initial post. The remaining 10% will be your responses to your classmates. So I'll score your initial post out of 15, and then I'll score your responses to your classmates out of 10. So 5 points per response, essentially, right? And one thing to say about the responses is they need to be substantial, right? You can't just say, hey, good point, Johnny, or I completely agree with you, Susan. You have to go beyond that. You have to give us some substance, right? Something to latch onto, some meat and potatoes to think about, some critical analysis, not just, oh, good point, right? Also, I urge you to ask questions of your classmates, right? If you don't have anything original to say, ask questions of your classmates. Hey guys, what do you think about so-and-so's argument, right? Do you agree with it? I found it a little troubling, or I had some issues with it, or whatever, right? Feel free to ask questions of each other. So hopefully that will be clear. In terms of length, what did I say here? Your initial post should be roughly 2 pages on a Microsoft Word document, 2 pages double-spaced, probably about 500 words if you want to use a ballpark number. And then your responses, I would say at least 5 sentences long, right? So something of substance to feedback on your classmates. The midterm assignment, like I said before, essentially you're just applying all of weeks 1 through 8 to these cases, okay? And that will be a 5 to 7 page double-spaced paper due March 29th at midnight. Okay, and then in the second half of the class, you have 2 other grades, the wiki posts, right? The wiki is pretty simple. You just go in every week, click on your wiki, edit wiki content, and you make a new one which responds to the theme of the week. So in week 10, the theme is the cultural history of your particular case. Week 11, the causes of dislocation. 12, the migration event. When did people actually leave that place? And how did they leave? 13, where did they resettle or repatriate? Where did they go to? How are they doing in that new place? And then in 14, you'll look at your classmates' cases, right? And then compare, how's mine different from yours? If I'm doing Cuba, how does Cuba compare and contrast to Guatemala, for instance? Okay, so then each week you'll write these wikis. There'll be, about 750 words of original text. You can also include video, include photos, anything from the internet. I highly urge you and recommend you do something like that. Be creative. Here I have a list of the independent study projects to just get you starting to think about them. Here they are: Cuba, Guatemala, Sudan, East Africa, Central Africa, Yugoslavia, former Yugoslavia of course, Iran, Palestine, Bhutan, Burma, Afghanistan. These are 11 very famous, well-known cases of refugees, many of them resettled in the United States. There should be no shortage of good material for you to use. So then after you've done your 5 wikis, right, you'll essentially just compile it into a final paper. So I mean, really, those weeks 10 through 14, you're preparing, you're establishing the foundation for your final paper. So it shouldn't be too hard going to that final thing. The wikis will be worth 20% of your final grade. The final paper will be worth 30%. So the key point there is to really edit your final paper. And don't just cut and paste or copy and paste from your wikis, right? You need to have a new argument, right? Something that ties it all together, some sort of cohesive argument that pulls everything together into really a concise 10 to 15 page final paper. Okay? And that will be due Monday, May 11th at midnight. But who's thinking about May 11th right now? It's January 20th, right? Course policies are pretty simple. Be polite in discussions, right? This is not Huffington Post. You can't swear at people on the internet just because it's anonymous. Well, here it's not anonymous. People know who you are. But yeah, you know, pretend, just think, well, I always like to think of myself when I'm responding to something online. I think, would I say this to someone's face, right, in a classroom? And if the answer is yes, then sure, publish it, right? If the answer is no, take a deep breath, go for a walk, come back, and rewrite it, right? It's called netiquette, right? Isn't that the term we're looking for here? Also remember that when people are doing discussions, they're thinking on their feet, right? It's like class discussion, right? So it's not going to be, it doesn't have to be super clear, it doesn't have to be super articulate, right? Just, you know, get your point out. Not much else to say. If you have an accommodation from the Office of Disability, please send it to me right away, and we'll you know, do everything that's recommended. I think that's pretty much it in terms of official things. And then the last thing I want to talk about was the course schedule, right? Print this out too. This will be your guideline every week. Here is the physical copy, but you will every week when you open up the learning module for that week, you'll also see all this stuff. I mean, I'll say, hey, we're reading this for this week, and check out this, and do this, and don't forget to do discussion number 2, and so forth and so on, right? So we certainly don't need to memorize this, right? But this will be your post, right? Your kind of guideline for the class. And as you can see, I have it structured in terms of readings in the left column, the film and website for that week, and then what's due, right? And discussions are due, at least in the first half of the class. And essentially each discussion is this. You're using the article, the reading, and also the course material, the lectures, and then applying them to the film, right, or the internet activity, right? So that's essentially what we're doing. Using the film or internet activity as kind of a case that we can discuss using the theory from the articles. So hopefully that'll make more sense as the class goes on. Anything else to say here? I don't think so. I'm sure you'll have questions. Please email them to me. Feel free to use the discussion to ask questions too about the class, about how things are going. And that's it. All right, so have fun going through the class this week. It's kind of a light load this week, so make sure to get kind of a better feeling for the class. No need to master the material, just kind of a feeling for how things work. And send me any concerns. All right, bye-bye.